In this video, I'm going to be showing how I make fresh milled whole wheat buttermilk biscuits. The recipe link will be in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. The first thing you'll want to do is to freeze your butter. Put your butter in the freezer while you are preparing the rest of your ingredients. Now it's time to mill your grain. You're going to mill 300 grams of soft white wheat. Now transfer your fresh milled flour to a freezer-safe mixing bowl, and we're going to put this in the freezer for 15 minutes to make sure that our flour is not warm from the grain mill. We want all of our ingredients to remain cold so that it does not melt our butter. After 15 minutes, add 24 grams of aluminum-free baking powder to your flour, 5 grams of salt, and stir it around. Now we're going to add 1 stick of butter, and we're going to use a grater to grate the butter directly into the flour. Alternatively, you could also just use refrigerated butter and use a pastry cutter or fork to cut the butter into the flour as well. Now add 265 grams of buttermilk or kefir to your flour mixture. I am using kefir. I'm mainly using this because I have so much of it on hand since we do make it homemade. On top of your buttermilk or kefir, add 16 grams of honey, and then go ahead and stir that well. Stir it until all of the flour is fully incorporated. We don't want to overmix, but we also don't want any dry bits of flour, so do stir it well. I find that with the soft white wheat, it doesn't tend to over knead very easily as if you were maybe using white flour. Also, I did forget to mention, when you mill your flour, do make sure to mill some extra. If you didn't mill extra, when you're done mixing your dough, go ahead and just mill some extra flour. That way you can have some for dusting your countertops. I tend to have extra flour in my freezer, and so that is what I'm using now to dust my countertops. So you're just lightly dusting your countertops, and you're going to take that biscuit dough and place it right in the middle of your flour that you've laid down. Now we're going to roll out our biscuit dough, and you want to use a floured rolling pin. I prefer this over my hands because I do want to be cautious not to melt the butter. Roll out your dough into a 9-inch rectangle, and then you're going to fold in the short edges towards the middle of the rectangle, and then you're going to repeat again by flattening it out into a rectangle. Fold in each short edge into the middle of the rectangle, and then you're going to repeat this about 3 times. I lost count when I was making this because I was talking to my kids and just lost count, but you only need to do it about 3 times. A bench scraper really comes in handy for this to get under the dough and to lift it. It's also helpful if your dough is sticking to take your bench scraper and just slide it under the dough to loosen up anything that might be stuck at the bottom. If I at all look odd doing this, it's because I am baby wearing, and it's actually kind of hard for me to reach the other end of the dough because I do have a baby strapped to my chest, and so it was getting a bit difficult to reach the other end of the rolling pin. But I'm sure you all can do this much more gracefully than I'm doing here, but I hope that my demonstration is still helpful. Now it's time to cut out your biscuits, and I'm using a 2.3-inch biscuit cutter. And with this, I got 11 biscuits out of it, and I'm lightly flouring the biscuit cutter so that it doesn't stick to the biscuits. And then I also will sometimes use my bench scraper to scrape under the dough to help to lift the biscuits. When you are pressing out your biscuits, do be sure to not twist your biscuit cutter because we do not want to seal the edges because that will hinder your biscuits from rising. Once you have cut out as many biscuits as you can, use the remaining dough and shape it back into a nice neat rectangle again so that you can continue to cut out more biscuits. I'm putting my biscuits on a cast iron pan, but you could also do this on a baking pan. You can line your baking pan with parchment paper if you like, but you just want to make sure that your biscuits are either touching or at least almost touching. That helps them all to rise nicely. Again, I am trying not to handle the dough with my hands too much because I don't want my butter to melt. Keeping the butter cold allows for your biscuits to have nice layers when the butter melts in the oven. Also, do be mindful not to use too much flour when you're rolling out your biscuits so that it doesn't make your biscuits too dry. As you can see, I'm getting down to the last bit of my biscuit dough. The last biscuit is always a little wonky. That's fine. I just always try to be sure not to let any go to waste. I'm just going to take this extra little piece of dough and just hide it underneath my last biscuit. Now it's time to bake at 450 degrees for 15 minutes. While it's baking, prepare your melted butter and honey mixture, and then after the 15 minutes is up, brush the tops of your biscuits with the honey butter mixture. After you've brushed the tops, put them back into the oven for 3 to 5 more minutes. And here is the finished product. Delicious fresh milled buttermilk biscuits. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. And if you try these biscuits, I'd love to know your opinions down below as well. Thank you.